So it's been a good few days now since we last picked up the camera. It's pretty weird actually being back in UK and talking to the camera for YouTube, because we went to the Arctic and it's a new environment, and then we did a new thing by filming, and then you come back here and it's like, well, I didn't do this in my old life. We had the MOT done yesterday, so that gives us now a full 12 months out on the road. That was me just getting out my toolkit. So I've got like a Euro crate that's got my tool bag, other tools, various other supplies. So I'll try and quickly go through that so you can see like what I chose to carry to live full time on the road. And if you're lucky, stick around, because I'll go through our Arctic experience and tell you what we prepped for, what worked, what went wrong. So let's get to it. So this will just be a quick run through of the simple stuff that we keep in here. So got my tool bag, drill bit set, drill, heat gun, which I don't think we had to use in the Arctic. Silicon gun, anyone knows me, I like a bit of silicon everywhere. Fuses, make sure you carry fuses. And make sure you carry the mega fuses as well. Starter battery booster thing. Although we shouldn't need that because our DC charger charges the starter battery. Cable spares, heat trace cable spares. Big socket set, more cable spares, spare cameras, plumbing stoppers in case any leaks and stuff. Cable ties, more spares, drain valve, electric drain valve spare. Spare toilet fan, because no one wants a composting toilet that doesn't blow outside. Bat and ball, don't know how that's ended up in my box. Aluminium heat tape, where I did the repair on the cable, the thermostat when we're away. Multi-pack of cable connectors, diesel, heater, hose and some fittings. So yeah, now I've got a mess on the driveway. Well, I feel like that's earned me a little break. So that's just all the stuff that we carry. Obviously I didn't go into too much detail on like when you're ready. Run out of water. The machine is great, it fits in the van, it's small, but then it means that it doesn't have much space for a lot of water or a lot of used granules. So it's quite needy, like it needs stuff a lot. And I forget about the good things when it needs stuff a lot. No, oh no, granules have gone everywhere. That's gonna need a proper clean, and that's future me's problem. Just over 5,000 subscribers, it's good. If you haven't subscribed yet, press it. Good. Right, where was I? Oh yeah, I feel like I deserved a break after doing all that. Break. So yeah, I didn't go into detail of exactly what I carry in those little boxes. If you want me to nerd out and go into super detail, then just drop a comment and let me know. I just don't know if everyone wants to go through a step by step of every little part. I've got to drink this coffee, I've got to tidy that mess up, and then we can start going through the list. So one of the little jobs I keep meaning to put off is this tap. We've got replacement because it's looking proper like worn out now. As you can see here, it's looking really naff, horrible. The only thing is we've got a spare, but we're in two minds whether to change it now or just keep hold of it, and then if we ever sell the van, then we can just put it on then and it's just looks brand new. So this is the sliding step, and it's probably one of my biggest headaches I've got right now. It's my fault. It's because I've pulled off the side of the road into deep snow, unknowing to me, and it wasn't just deep snow, it was rock solid ice snow, and it covered the axles at the back, and it's basically wedged the bottom, and every time now it goes in and out, it's snagging on something, and it sounds like it's gonna die. As you can see, it's not the first repair I've done. It's been bashed off road a few times because it's basically the lowest point of the van, but unfortunately we couldn't live without it. But as you can see, my favourite tool here is silicon, so that's been well used and did a great repair there. To be fair, I did pull this off a minute ago. I think to get it fixed is going to be an under here job. So I need to undo all this bottom section and look at what's causing it to snag. Well, this is a fun upgrade actually. Hold on, let me grab something to lay on. So under here, got this new little sneaky little device. Hopefully it's waterproof, but that is a sonar level sensor for the LPG tank. So I'll show you inside what that looks like. We've got this LPG sensor that just lights up green, and to be honest, it usually just stays there and then we run out of gas. So that's been pretty useless for us, to be fair. So we're walking through Coruna with Alex Frood, and he was listening to me moan about my LPG woes, and he says, "Oh, just fit one of these margarita sensors." And I was like, "What's that?" Now I know. Look at this. Fresh tank, waste tank, LPG tank. So that's a huge deal for us because it's one of the real bugbears that we've had since the beginning of the build, and it's just been reoccurring, and it seriously lets you down. You know, it's one thing running out of water, but this thing will be cooking halfway through a meal. Always happens when you're halfway through a meal, and then it just runs out and lets us down. So not only will we get an accurate reading of that, we can, and it's also linked to our Victron system, is I can set up alarms. You know, even if there is a leak or for any reason the gas drops to a certain level, I'll get a notification through my email and we'll know that it's run out. So I am just so happy with that. Like, you cannot believe how happy I am with that. Just need to fix everything else with the LPG now. And before you all go on about how electric's better, not sure. The other issue we have with the LPG is the regulator. So LPG regulator's in there somewhere. It's wrapped around with heat trace cables. So yeah, that LPG regulator has let us down multiple times. It is rated to -20. However, it has stopped working at -10, -5. So definitely something wrong with it. That's why I had to add the heat trace cables, just so we could warm it up and get by through the Arctic season. We're limited on time of how much we can get done, but it is currently working now. It's warmer, so we're going to order a replacement, and then we can just take that one with us. And then when we're somewhere random off grid in Southern Europe and I've got a bit more time, I can just get it swapped out. So on to the next thing. So next on the list, I need to refer to my list. Really good upgrade that we had in the Arctic was this screen here, but what it does come with is a fly screen, fly net. So that basically is 2 layers. The first one is the quilted layer, the second one is the fly screen that comes down, but we then end up with this gaping big hole down at the bottom here. So we are speaking with the company who made it and see whether they can just custom fit something down there. So it's Voyage Adventure Vans, and we're super happy with how that came out. We just didn't think we could have something at the bottom because these chairs and everything basically come in and they protrude where the fly screen would be. We didn't think it would work, but we're thinking of ideas now. Another upgrade that I'd love to have is, I see a lot of people now with the gas struts from like over here, and then they pin them to a bolt in here. But because we have this step or this boxing here, which I'll get to in a second, we'd have to do a lot of work to get around that. So I don't think that's for this time, but we'd absolutely love that. So basically what that does is it just means that, one, when it's windy, the doors aren't going to slam shut, and because obviously there's a lot of weight there, and what can happen is when it is really windy is you're getting something out the back here or in here, and they just absolutely you as they swing and wallop you. So another job we want to get done is these tank blasters. So that's just to stop the smell we're getting from the kitchen sink. I have previously added some waterless traps on the plumbing system under the van, and that stops the smell of the tank coming back up into the van, which we were getting previously. Even still, we are getting a smell through the sink, but I don't think it's from the tank. I just think the pipe itself has had so much crud go down it over the last year that it just stinks, and that's just wafting back up into the van. So definitely want to get those done, and we'll let you know if they're any good and whether it's worth using. So another one for the list is inside that bathroom pod there. Not showing you that now because it's in dire need of a clean. So just imagine I'm sitting on the toilet now instead. So basically what's happening is we have a composting loo, and if you don't have one of those, or you think you're going for a chemical toilet, don't. Just never do that. We love our toilet. It enables us to be off grid for such a long period of time. I mean, I think we empty it anything between like 2 or 3 weeks on the rear section, and then the pea pot is probably, we just empty it once every 24 hours, just so that we don't get caught short, because that has happened in the past. But other than that, it's just fantastic. So if you want to know any more about that, let me know. But what I did do in that bathroom pod is, because we can often find ourselves camping up mountains and where things aren't necessarily flat, even though we have leveling ramps and we'll find rocks and anything to try and level up. If you imagine on a steep mountain, it's usually a sheer drop, so as much as you try, it can still be downhill. And what we found was, you have a shower and basically the water then manages to escape somewhere, because although it's like essentially a wet room, water, or the bathroom, isn't designed to have water going at such a sheer angle. So what I did is I basically created a offset ramp for the toilet to sit on, and then I've kind of added bits and pieces to level the toilet off. But what's happened when we've been off-road, hot temperatures, cold temperatures, all that's happened is all that stuff's now starting to come apart, and it's just like a rocking toilet. So while we're here, we're just going to get that stripped out, and I'll just refresh everything there and just get the toilet nice and still. So another little job that Tracy's dad's helping us out with is, we've got this little sink infill. Over the period of time we've had it, we found that on the underneath we'd end up getting a bit of mould, just because it's so moist under this sink. You know, with this down, it just doesn't really get a chance to dry out. So once we were aware of that, we cleaned it off and resealed it and everything, and then at night time we flip it round, so it's just got a long period of time throughout every day that it has to dry out thoroughly. But it still discolours on the underside, so Tracy's dad's just completely sanded it down. I've just pinched this from the garage, and then he's going to treat it with some hardcore sealant, and then hopefully that'll be the end of that. But yeah, we love having this, because it just, obviously having a small workspace in the kitchen, it just really extends it. But that's that. Back outside for this one. Hold on. So this little mat that we have here, we think it looks great when it's not worn out the way it is. Just comes out like that. That's lived through the Arctic, so yeah, that needs replacing, nice and easy. Right, so back to the coffee station. This is where we've got another issue, is the coffee machine itself. I don't know whether it leaks or whether because we drive with it. Obviously they're probably not designed to be driven around, and definitely not off-road up mountain passes, so the angles that this thing has lived through is quite funny. But what's that resulted in is water's obviously got through to this table. We're much better now. We've got this absorbent mat, and we've got this rubber thing that then obviously stops it getting through to the table, but it's a bit too late. So I don't know if you can see that there. Got a bit of a crack here, and that's, yeah, it's quite bad. It's basically split now the whole way to the back, and we don't really want to replace this table because it's like it's quite a specific thin worktop, so it's actually really expensive to get a new one. You'd have to buy like 2 or 3 meters worth just for this. So nice and simple. I'm just going to get an aluminium plate and just secure that to the bottom of the table. That'll go either side of the crack, and then it'll be absolutely fine, because I think we're keeping on top of the wet now. Another thing inside the van, we normally have like this wicker basket here, just odds and sods go in there, and I think it makes it warms up the space. This is obviously all camper van furniture, so we've been hesitant to drill or put anything like permanent in here in case we just didn't like it and wanted to undo it. It's not like you can just touch this up and repaint it. Well, maybe you could, but not easily. But whatever we find to secure it and hang it on just keeps like unsticking. The adhesive's useless and keeps coming off. So it's currently off. We're just prepping it so that it can stick well, whatever we choose to use. But yeah, so hopefully by the time we leave, there'll be something back on there. So another little fiddly job is these cab blinds. They're from a company called Wonderbug in the UK. We love them, but they're quite a few years old now, and they have magnets in these trims, but as you can imagine, like, they're very strong magnets, and every time you keep pulling, this seam at the edge has started to wear away. The company did offer to redo them for us, but we just didn't. Obviously we need them every night, and we just didn't have the time to ship them off and then wait for them to come back. So Tracy's mum and her friend have kindly offered to do that. They've just started on this one, and then the other thing is we think that maybe the material shrunk somehow. They're adding a bit of material at the bottom the whole way along, and then that should keep us good from all the light leak that we're having. So yeah, we love them, and we spec them like that because we want something that's removable from the inside, just from a safety point of view. We camp all over the place, so we can never guarantee that it's going to be a safe place. We might arrive and think it's safe, but then there might be a nutter that turns up, and then could you imagine going, oh, can you just give me 5 minutes while I just sort my cab blind out, please? While yielding a knife or something, trying to rob you. But not that we've ever had that problem, but just in case, pull them from the inside and away you go. So back outside again for this one. We've obviously done our initial deep clean of the van, just because it was going in for the MOT, so we wanted to make it at least respectable and not completely like it had just come out of the Arctic. Tracy did the inside, I did the outside like normal. One of the things that we do is the flares in around the window. This was all Raptor painted at some stage, but it's just faded over the last couple of years, and actually what I find works quite well is a bit of back to black, but you can imagine that's quite a job because it's all over there, it's on the back doors, it's the other side, and that's before we've even treated the plastics elsewhere on the van. So detailing this beast is one heck of a job. So again, because we've got a bit of driving coming up over the next week in the UK, I don't want to go too much to town right now because no doubt I'll probably want to do it again before we go. But so we need to do all the outside, and then there's some bits inside that we need to do. So start at the back. So we've got these panels here, and they've got a bit of tide mark, a bit of water marks, and you've got it here as well. And we think that you've got the blind, the insulated cover there that we use, and basically what's happening is I think condensation was getting on the other side, this side, and then it runs down and then just collects here. So hopefully that's all that is. But we're going to use like a carpet cleaner that we've got, a little machine. Apparently it works really well. Apparently it's Scotch guarded as well, whatever that means. Tracy told me to say that. The other thing we use it on is Womble seat. So basically he lives on this, and he dribbles down here as such. We do have like a mat that lives on here as well, so he's not just on top of the seat material, but whenever we're back in the UK we just get that machine out and just give this a whirl as well. And actually it's worked really well on, because obviously we have a lot of like carpety type material around the van. We often find here especially coming in where it's near the light switches can suffer really badly. So I think, you know, we'd maybe get that replaced to something a bit more hardy at a later date, but for now we'll just keep cleaning it. And how could I forget the fridge? So basically when my brother came to visit us last year when we'd not long left, he managed to make a massive hole in our fridge just as we'd left, and obviously no chance of replacing it where we were. But then when we got back just recently, back in January, we managed to get that replaced, all good, up until about a week ago. We've no idea how it happened again. That down there, what a bummer. So also with the fridge, the shelves inside have all cracked and damaged. I mean, they're barely holding it together, a bit like me with this list now. But yeah, so we're going to get those ordered, but the issue is that nowhere seems to stock it. We were in Europe last summer and it was like, oh, we can get them in 12 weeks. We're now back in the UK and it's like, we can get them to you after you leave. So we're still on the hunt for those bits. Any Thetford suppliers that have all those bits, let us know. Okay, so let's talk about the prep we put in place to get the van to the Arctic and survive the cold Arctic temperatures. Number one is the heat trace cables. They were a game changer. So our fresh water tank is inside the van, our grey water tank is outside the van, so that would just freeze immediately. And actually when the system failed when we were there, it did. It was just one big ice cube. So how this works is you have heat trace cables that are wrapped around the waste pipes under the van and also wrapped around the drain valve, because it's all well and good getting the water to the tank, but then you've got to get the water out as well. I then have a Victron temperature sensor that's wrapped around the drain valve, and that tells the servo, the Victron system, when to bring these heat cables on. So I've set it to 1 degrees on, 11 degrees off, and then you kind of get that nice graph of on, heat retention, so it goes off, cools down slowly, and then back on. You need to make sure that it's heavily insulated so that you do get good heat retention. You can get these heat trace cables ready-made off Chinese suppliers like Temu and places like that. That's where I got mine from. You can get various lengths. I'd recommend just ordering some and ordering spares. You're not going to want to be without them in the places that they're needed, so I've just got loads of spares. And actually, when our LPG regulator wouldn't work and I was having to warm up a rag with a kettle and go under the van every time we wanted to cook, I was like, I've had enough of this, and I just wrapped a heat trace cable around it and it was good to go. So they're super useful if you know what you're doing. So that goes through the Victron system, through the relay, and then through another relay that I fitted, and it just all links together, and that has made us so happy because it means that we can shower normally, we can use the sink normally, our tanks, everything is just normal as we would do anywhere else in the world. So number one, if you're going to try and use your van in the Arctic or super cold environments and you've got pipes and tanks under the van, that's the only way I see it working. I know some people leave their drain valves open, but I would imagine that the pipe work would end up just freezing and backing up, but who knows. And also, do you really want to be draining your waste in places where there's people walking around? It's not exactly subtle, is it? We do also have a heater pad on our waste tank as well, but to be honest, we haven't really had to turn that on, which is good because it's using more energy. I just think because it's got if you imagine the tanks here, you've got the pipe work coming in, like the long one from the van, and then you've got the drain valve here. They've both got heater cables on. One's high up, one's low, and I just think that the general temperature of that tank just doesn't go below freezing because it's just got these two kind of constantly keeping that ambient temperature inside just slightly above freezing. So that was really cool, like unplanned, and that's worked really well. So yeah, heat trace cables, they are brilliant. Next on the list, which is just as important, it's all well and good having your pipes warm, but you've got to keep yourself warm. And we have a Truma diesel D6E, which works fantastic. We did add another heater outlet for the Arctic trip because if you imagine the boiler's on one side of the van and all the heat outlets follow that side, so it means that this side isn't heated at all. As far as obviously the air will travel there, but the freshwater tank and all the plumbing is this side as well, or some of the plumbing anyway for the kitchen. And we've heard from people, if you've got pipe work in cupboards, especially down low near the floor, and there's no heat getting to those places, in the Arctic, it's just gonna freeze. So what we've done is we've added another vent that goes around the back doors and then all along the side here, and then pumps warm air around where the fridge is. And that means that it follows all the pipe work when it crosses from one side to the other. It follows all the pipe work around the tank, and it follows all the pipe work going to the kitchen sink. So we didn't have any internal freezing problems with that. So yeah, super happy with that. But so just whatever your system is or setup is if you want to go to these extreme cold temperatures, is just make sure that any pipe work is warmed up, and also any tanks or any pipe work is where you can off the ground. Our tank was raised off the ground slightly, but to be fair, there's some pipe work that we've got that is literally pinned to the floor and it never froze. So that idea of the extra heater outlet worked really well. So on the subject of diesel heaters, we do have our engine preheater, which the controls up there. That's an Eberspacher hydronic something. If you really want to know, drop me a comment and I'll find out the spec of that. That's been faultless, comes on every time. It can take anything from half an hour to like an hour to warm up. The only way to check it is you have to turn the key and just check your oil temperature and just make sure that's warmed up before you start the engine. But yeah, couldn't do it without that. Wouldn't want to put my engine through that anyway. And then another thing that we have that's been really good is we also installed a backup diesel heater. So that doesn't run around on the same ducting as a Truma. It's just purely one outlet at the base of this seat down here. And the reason for that is we just did not want to be in sub-zero temperatures. You know, could be life-threatening if it's that cold, and have no means of warming up ourselves. It would just be, you know, holiday over or trip over in that case. So we had that fitted quite a while ago before one of the trips to the Alps, because at the end of the day, you imagine you spent all that money, all that time getting yourself to the Alps, Eurotunnel, fuel, cost of the skiing, parking, passes, all of that, and then day 2 your heater packs up, you're going home, trip over. But if you've got a backup heater, just you've got some way of resolving the situation. Obviously, if it's mega cold and we're just using this backup heater, then there's a potential that some of the pipework would freeze, but we just have to tackle that. I'd rather be warm than worrying about other things. So what's been really good about this backup heater that's not planned but like a real surprise is, as I've said, it comes out at the side of this base seat, which is right at the entrance of where we come in and out. And we do have mats down on the floor normally, and as you can imagine, walking in with snow on your feet all the time, this floor and this mat would get saturated. But by having that backup heater on, is everything would just dry out super quick here, like far quicker than the Truma. And also when we had the really cold temperatures, you just start to feel the cold creeping in from the cab area. It's not too bad. I mean, we're talking like -15, -20 and less. So anything more than that, you really aren't worried at all. But I think it was just by chance we started using this backup heater, and it's unbelievable the amount that heater, because it's just one outlet, and I think it's a 4 kilowatt as well, is it just pumps so much hot air into this space. And I think because it's pointing downwards, is it really fills the area up, and you don't feel the cold spots anywhere near as much. So I'm not saying you have to suddenly go out and buy a backup heater, but I think I'd recommend having one from a safety point of view, just having that peace of mind that worst case you've got backup. But actually unplanned position, and the benefit of drying out the walkway very quickly, keeping the cab space really warm. And actually another really good point, and this is obviously specific to our setup, is our Truma's right in the back in the garage space where the dogs sleep. And if you imagine, that's having to work super hard to get the heat from the back all the way to the front, is you are going to get some heat loss through the boiler into the garage. And we found that actually the dogs would get a bit warm and then end up like coming out of their space panting and stuff. So what we tend to do is put the Truma on hot water only, so it generates a little bit of heat back there, and then we were just using the backup heater for ourselves to just regulate our temperature, and that works so well. So as mentioned earlier, we made a few upgrades to the blinds that we have. So we added the one at the back door. That made a huge difference, because you've obviously got where the doors meet and the windows there, so that's really good. Another one is actually in the flares. So originally we had blinds that just covered the frame of the window, and actually what you'd have is you just have this draft at the edge of it where the frame got so cold. So we had new ones made that just covered most of the flare space, and that has been wonderful. Like, it's just so much cozier up there now. That's from the same brand as the cab blinds, that Wonderbug. They just do custom made ones, and obviously they work in the van space. So most normal vans that are out there, they've already had the templates done, so you just choose the style you want and what van you've got. Same company, so this goes on our Max van. We don't really put it on for thermal reasons, it's more for road noise driving. We find that even with the fan down when driving, it can be super noisy, and honestly you put that up there and it's just so quiet. So another upgrade we made with unexpected positives was raising the dog beds off the floor, because we'd heard that anything on the floor can get super cold. I made some adjustable leg frame beds and raised them up, and then suddenly went, oh, we've got loads more storage suddenly. So all these cab blinds that we've got, we'd usually just kind of like store on the bed, and now they live under there. We've got like our yoga mats for doing exercise, extra dog food, the snow chains went under there, loads of stuff. So again, one of those upgrades that you didn't know you needed, and then once you got it, it's like, how did we ever live without that? So on the subject of keeping things off the ground, make sure 100% that your leisure batteries are protected from the cold coming through the floor. So whether that's raise them, put something in between, whatever you need to do, and check the specifications of your batteries themselves, because some will only be rated so far. Like I can't remember the numbers, but we can obviously go down quite far, but then you can't charge that low. So we'd be in a right pickle if it's too cold. So we're really fortunate. Again, just didn't design it that way. It just happened to be that they came in a cupboard off the ground, so we were really fortunate with that. But I just thought I'd mention that because that'll be something that will catch someone out and really make a trip a bad trip. So another upgrade we did ahead of the winter, and actually it was kind of like a summer and a winter upgrade, is our original water filler point was inside the van on the bed unit, so we always had to open the doors to fill up. And a lot of the time in Southern Europe especially, you fill up at these airs and it's right next to the dump station, the grey water station, so you can imagine in the warmer temperatures how many flies are just swarming everywhere. So we would have the doors open, filling up, the van gets full of bugs, and it just made me think, could you imagine being in the Arctic, -20 or less, and having to open the back doors to fill up with water that can sometimes take, you know, a good 10 minutes if the water pressure's low? We'd all be shivering in here. So we added a filler point that goes under the van, and how the design works is it goes up and over like that. So with the pressure of the water's going to go in from the bottom and over like that, and then when it's finished you take the hose off, and then all of that water drains out, so there's no risk of it freezing, and then we just put a cap over the edge and then it just tucks inside our bumper. So that was like one of the best upgrades we've made, like, because it's all year round, we make the most of it. It's so nice just not have to go into the back doors. So yeah, not sure if that would help you, but it really helped us. So another really good upgrade that's not necessarily a winter upgrade is our ARB compressor that's under the bonnet that we use to re-inflate the tyres, because we always need to, especially off-road, deflate the tyres to make the ride not as aggressive and shaky. And actually we found on a number of occasions in the Arctic, when the roads are just covered in snow and it starts to wear away, as it's maybe not snowed for a few days, and you end up with these, as I've mentioned a few times now, these divots in the road, and it rattles just as bad as being on an off-road forest track or something like that. So we love being able to deflate, get through the roads, and then you could do a few kilometers and it completely opens up again and it's fine. So we started with like an Amazon special compressor, and it could take nearly an hour to re-inflate 4 tyres. So then it just puts you off deflating the tyres in the first place. Again, it's not like you need that, you can get around it, but we made great use of it. So to be honest, actual kit we took for ourselves really wasn't that much. I think number one is the jacket you buy, put as much money into that as you possibly can. We spent a fair bit on ours. It's from a Swedish company called Stella, I think they're called. Tracy found them, and unbelievably comfortable, kept us warm. In actual fact, I think they're only rated to like -20, but our thought process was there was like the next level up that was like -35 or something, and we just thought, you know, spending this much money on a jacket, why would we buy something that's gonna only be used in that specific use case, and then it's going to be too hot for anything else? And we actually found that we used our jackets all the way back to the UK, even when it was like 5 degrees outside, it was still comfortable. And the benefit is that you've got a -20 jacket that's quite long, it covers a lot of your body, and then if it was, not that we had to, but if it was like incredibly cold, you could always fit, like we have like a little rab jacket, you know, the thinner profile jackets that we've got underneath, you know, so you can always add layers on. But we just didn't want that expensive jacket that was a -35 and just be a waste of time in other use cases. So we're going to take those with us, because even if we're up in the Pyrenees or somewhere having a campfire, or even if it's like summer months, it can still be relatively cold at night, so we're going to get great use out of those, so super happy. Other than the jackets, we bought thin gloves, finger gloves, and then we bought really warm mittens. So the theory behind that is to be able to, worst case, if it's again super cold, is put the gloves inside the mittens, and then for us, obviously, because we're operating cameras and getting content with our phones, is that we can take the mittens off and basically not have our hands completely bare, which, tell you what, you think you've experienced cold, wait till you get to Arctic temperatures, like your hands burn so much. And actually, I say that, but in actual fact, it is cold, but as long as you wear the appropriate clothes for those conditions, like you don't feel cold, you don't worry at all. So for footwear, is we bought so the brand Vans that make trainers, and they do a series called MTE. I don't know if that's like a mountain shoe or something, but they do ones that have Gore-Tex, and they have been fantastic, super comfortable, super warm, and we've even like walked through like rivers and stuff with them when it's water, and they're super waterproof, so really happy with those. We wore those again all the way back to UK, driving with them especially, and just super happy. So decent jacket, decent gloves and mittens, and decent shoes. As far as the rest of the clothes, it's pretty much what I'd wear any other time of the year. I just mainly wear like chinos, and I think there was only a couple of times I had to put like leggings on underneath, like insulated leggings on underneath, just to keep my legs warm. But other than that, I think because the jacket was fairly long, I was really comfortable. Okay, so things that went wrong in the Arctic, and our biggest headache was the LPG regulator that failed on a few occasions when it got cold. It should be rated down to -20, so ordinarily it probably would have been fine for most of the time we were there, but as you know, we added the heat trace cables and it was fine, so I won't go into that again. Secondly, our amazing heat trace cable system is only as good as the thermostat controlling it, and that failed. And I think what happens is, when you're driving through lots of snow, when it's snowing heavily, is that underneath of the van literally gets like a huge layer of snow, and I think it just snow managed to get inside the insulation and probably just wreck the thermostat. So I've replaced that, and it's happened again. So I need to refit it, but then think of a way that I can waterproof it a bit better. So that was that. So very early on in the trip, I think we were in Finland where we did that wild track. We covered it on the video then, but basically we thought we had a leak from the roof, but it just turns out that we have cupboards in the back like this. They're stuffed with packing cubes, and whether it's from cooking, showering, obviously you generate some condensation inside the van, and that probably got into the very corners, into the nooks and crannies, and then froze. And no matter how good your heater is, it's never going to get behind those packing cubes. So we took all the stuff out of the cupboards, and it all thawed out, and we never had it again. So just bear in mind, if you have a similar setup, is just when you're in those conditions, is just have a look around, pull stuff out, and just check for any frost, and just keep everything ventilated well if you can. And then, unless I think of anything else, finally, is we developed a random squeak on the floor in between the bathroom pod and the kitchen pod. And I was concerned that it was the waste from the shower tray leaking into the floor space, because we have had that once before, I think because we go off-road and shake the van to pieces. I thought, here we go again, but obviously this time we've got all that insulation on the pipes underneath with the heat trace cables, and I thought I dread having to take that apart. So I kind of just ignored it, because I wasn't doing that in the Arctic anyway. But in actual fact, we've got back, and it's really quieting down, so I think it's just maybe just a bit of thermal expansion. Everything hot, everything cold. It's the middle of the floor, so maybe just the adhesive, whatever's sticking it down, had maybe come a bit loose, but that seems to have gone a bit better. So not sure how that will help you in future, but that's what happened to us. But I think for now, that is a hell of a lot of information. I hope you've enjoyed a bit more van talk and prep and all the bits and pieces that's gone on. Obviously it's completely different to other videos we've made. I can't wait for travelling to Southern Europe taking you to those amazing locations that we've been to before, off-grid, wild places, up the mountains, at the beach, you name it, we're going to go to it. So just get this period done and then we can get back on the road and get back to having an adventure. But thanks for watching and see you in a bit.